What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Biz Dad podcast. Today, I have a fellow military friend of mine, as well as a business owner, real estate guy, just all around awesome dude in GoBundance as well. Which I think a majority of you who have listened to more than one episode have realized that that's a lot of the people I talk to, because it's a bunch of dads who are entrepreneurs, so it's great. But Doug Spence is with us today. I want to let him introduce himself. Doug, please just kind of say hello, introduce your family, who you are, a little bit of background on you and your business, and we'll go from there.
Hey, Adam. Good morning. Thanks for having me on the podcast. My name is Doug Spence. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. Did my undergrad at Baylor University, and then joined the Navy back in 2009. Was a aviation guy, so went to flight school for a couple of years in Pensacola, and then selected Super Hornets and went out to Lemoore, California for a year, then moved out to Japan for 3 years, did 3 carrier deployments, then moved to Pensacola, Florida to be a flight instructor, did that for 3 years, which is also where I met my wife, Kate. She is a Navy JAG. We're both active duty Navy. And then moved to San Diego in December of 2018. Was at SEAL Team 3 for 2 years, running their JTAC program, so Joint Terminal Attack Controller. For those of you that aren't in the military, it's basically how you bring effects from aircraft onto the ground, or artillery onto the ground, or the surface, because it could be on the ocean as well. And then now I'm back at an aviation command now, a non-flying aviation command, doing a department head tour now here in San Diego. We've been in San Diego for 4.5 years now. And then I got into real estate back in 2016 when I was in Pensacola. So that's where I bought my first property, really where I got addicted to real estate. And I've been surrounding myself with people that feed that addiction ever since. So it's only gotten worse, right? And just been doing real estate on the side while I'm active duty. So it's been
all the addictions to have, though. Real estate's not a bad one.
It's a lucrative addiction if you do it right. Mm-hmm. So the opposite of a lot of other addictions.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, that's kind of a bird's eye view. Yeah, just being and then we have our son Calvin. He was born on Cinco de Mayo, 2022 last year. So he's a little over a year now. Nice. And he's awesome. And so now just juggling being a dad, being a husband, Navy guy, real estate investor, all that stuff. So, but it's been great. It's been quite a journey.
That's awesome. I am definitely understanding of that, as I started my real estate stuff. I mean, I even, like, my first apartment I bought, I was living in Japan. At the time, my wife and I, both Air Force, and living in Japan, and bought an apartment, and it was what a whirlwind, a pain in the butt, with a kid running around the house. So
right. Were you at Yokota?
I was, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was at Atsugi, so we were.
Oh, nice. Yeah, right down the road. Yeah. I loved being out there. I mean, I could not, that was probably one of my favorite places I've ever lived. We traveled all over Japan, had a great time. Yeah, it was awesome.
I loved it. I had an apartment in Tokyo the whole 3 years. So
yeah, even better.
Nice. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I was stuck in base housing, living the dream in a nice, 1,100 square foot townhouse. But
Yokota, you're only an hour away from Tokyo. Yeah. So, I mean, you get to, and you're close to Fuji and all that. So a lot of cool stuff to do there.
Yeah, we climbed Fuji. I actually climbed Mount Fuji with Adam on my back when he was I think it was 2.5 when we climbed Fuji. So I had one of the little hiking carriers, and I had him in the back, and hiking our way up there. And everybody was especially all the Japanese folks were like, "What is that? There's a kid in your back!" They would grab his foot and say hello. And we pulled him out at one point because he wanted to walk for a little bit. I pulled him out, and he tried to walk up and started to follow backwards. I was like, "Okay, well, you're gonna hop back in. I don't need you rolling down Mount Fuji." Yeah. But yeah, it was. I absolutely loved that assignment. But
yeah, me too.
So you were single then, right? Because you moved from there to Pensacola, which where you met your wife, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. And how long have you been married?
Been married for a little over 3 years now.
Okay. Awesome. Mm-hmm. I, as you know, love real estate, so I could talk about that all day long. So I'd love to kind of dig into that a little bit. But before we jump into that, Tell me a little bit about your dad, your upbringing, kind of how that kind of brought you to where you are now, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you're wanting to share with the beginning parts of all this, how it started.
Yeah. So overall, good upbringing. My parents divorced when I was 11. And so there was, the whole going from house to house thing, but I think my parents handled it pretty well. It was, not too, traumatic. It's not like some of those divorces you hear about where they're just like screaming at each other. And, there's a lot of, the cops are getting called. Like it wasn't anything like that. So, so that was good overall. And my dad was very frugal. So that was one very valuable thing that I learned from my dad in particular was frugality. He was he's kind of frugal, but like to an extreme. So I've had to kind of correct back. My wife has helped me with that. She's frugal too, but she's also, appreciates like living life, so she's really helped me with that. And not just like, you don't have to save, 70% of everything you earn, now that kind of mindset, cause I've been able to have a roughly 50% savings rate the entire time I've been in the military. Nice. So like over 14 years. So, that has been very beneficial for me, like financially, just having that habit of frugality. So that's one thing I learned from my dad that was really beneficial. But not a big feelings guy. So that's been something I've had to learn, like it's kind of a downside. It's like, it's okay to express emotion and all that kind of stuff. And my personality is very, I don't know how much of this is nature versus nurture, probably a lot of nature, but I'm very logical. On some of those personality tests, I'm like 10 on logical, 1 on emotions, and I don't know how much of that is like military as well, where it's just like, there is zero value in the military and like, well, tell me how that, that flight we did, how did you feel when we were, that doesn't matter, right? It's just like, how did it go? We need to, here are the things that you messed up. Here's how we need to get better, for the sake of the squadron, for the sake of the mission, et cetera. So it's like, I don't know how much of that is just me and how much of that is just beat into me from being in the military. Same with like communication, like communication style, very direct, matter of fact, not, it doesn't matter what your feelings are about something. It matters what happened and how we can get better, et cetera. So, definitely some pros and cons, like everyone, learning from their parents and from their dad. But, overall, I'm not a drug addict. I'm not a alcoholic. I'm not, so I think, overall, I think they did a pretty good job.
Awesome. Yeah, you're just a real estate addict. So that's a plus.
Yeah, just a real estate addict. Now, I did not learn any real estate stuff from them. So that was one thing that, they taught me frugality and they were good at, they impressed upon me, don't have credit card debt. Don't, make sure you're living beneath your means. Basically the foundations of like getting to zero and staying above zero, but not how to build wealth. It was more like, okay, put some money in like money market or index funds, like if you have some left over, but that was pretty much the extent of that. So the real estate stuff I learned from like everyone else. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think like in high school or something like a long time ago, or college or something, like pretty soon after it came out, and then was introduced to Bigger Pockets probably back in like 2015, 2016. And then that's Bigger Pockets is how I started learning about it. And then I was like, damn, there's, you don't have to be a gazillionaire to like own real estate. I didn't know that. So learning about real estate through Bigger Pockets and then buying my first house and then seeing like, oh, wow, like, doing the taxes myself on the first property. I was like, wow, this is really good. Like I understand that, what they're saying about this now. So then just kind of got the bug from there. So didn't really learn building wealth from my parents, but they helped me get to zero and then start to save. So that by the time I learned about real estate, I had some money saved up and I had good credit and all that stuff. So it really set a good foundation for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I did not have that necessarily. As I told you before we turned on the recording, I was very paycheck to paycheck. That's just all I had ever seen. I didn't know there was any different. So at least you got a good structure on that part. So, what did your dad do for a living as you were growing up?
So he is an accountant. So accountant / controller for different companies. So he's a numbers accounting, finance, not so much finance, but numbers accounting kind of guy, which is like the opposite of me. I'm not I can do the basic arithmetic, but like I'm not the underwriter. So
yeah. But that also could be, where you get some of your logical thinking from. And
absolutely.
Yeah. We were doing at one of the Florida meetups, we were having to get together and doing one of those personality things. And I was pegged all the way to the right on the logical side. Like it was a 10 out of 10. And I was like, what the heck? And the guy was like, so do you know who Spock is? And I was like, oh, great. Thank you for comparing me to Spock. I appreciate that. But it's kind of a pain in the butt. But at the same point, I don't know. I learned that I need to think more about other people's feelings because I don't really have any. The only people that can affect my feelings are my wife and my kids. Other than that, it's very rare that a feeling comes out. So it's tough for me to think and talk like other people have feelings.
Feelings are, they get in the way. They cloud the decision making is how
exactly. They cloud my judgment. I can't be having that. Right. Anytime I've ever brought feelings into a decision, it's almost always turned out bad.
Right. Especially almost always. Money, finance, stuff like that. Like emotions make people make bad decisions.
Very poor decisions
generally.
Yeah. You're not wrong. Yeah. So I'm training my sons to not have any emotion too. Beat it out
deep down.
Zero emotions. Never bring them out.
Dude, I did the Myers-Briggs. We've done those a few times, like as a family, and we kind of talk about them, and and I'm like I think I'm ENTJ, which it's like well-known people that also have this one. Saddam Hussein, Donald Trump, and I'm just like, all right,
fantastic.
So
appreciate you putting me on that spectrum. Yeah,
Darth Vader was one of them. So I'm like, of course, perfect. So
lovely. Yes.
Yeah.
Man. It was that extrovert. You're judgmental. You're a judgmental extrovert. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So
I'm sure Calvin, your son, will love that. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So when you bought your first house, I think you said in Pensacola, was that right?
Right.
All right. So since then, kind of like, what was your journey getting onto real estate? Like, what was it about buying that first house that made you go, boy, I should really keep doing this? And then what did you continue doing after that?
So it really, buying the first house was, I was renting in Pensacola because I had moved from Japan, and I was renting initially, and then as I was living. Excuse me. As I was living in the neighborhood, I started learning more about real estate, and I started looking at the neighborhoods or the neighborhood I was in, and I realized I was like, man, I could buy. There was a house that was for sale that was newer, larger, and more updated than the house I was renting for $1,500 a month. And I looked at the price, and I was like, man, the mortgage would be $1,100 a month. Mm-hmm. And it's newer, it's bigger, same neighborhood. And so that was pretty much the extent of my real estate analysis for that first property. But it was sound. I was right. I was like, man, that's $400 cheaper a month. And I'm buying it. I would be getting any appreciation, and I could rent it out. I bought it with the plan of renting it out when I moved from Pensacola. So I bought it in 2016, about a year after I moved to Pensacola, and just conventional. I didn't use my VA loan. I was smart enough to know that the purchase price was $198,000, and I was like, I could put 20% down with money that I've saved up and save my VA loan for a more expensive house down the road. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I thought about that, and I didn't use my VA entitlement then. So I still have never used my VA entitlement. And so I bought that house with the intent of renting it out. Fast forward, moving away from Pensacola, put some tenants in the house, and I've been renting it out ever since.
Nice.
So that house has been good. And I was able to rent it out.
You can use your VA loan more than once.
Yes. Yeah. And I just thought from that point on, we moved to San Diego, and I was like, I'm not ready to buy here yet. We did end up buying the house that we live in now. It's a VA. It's a house hack with a VA loan, but we use my wife's VA entitlement for this house, so we still have mine. But with the ideas, we'll probably use my entitlement for like our forever home, or wherever that may be, whenever we're out of the military. So, using a conventional in that house was a good decision at the time, for sure. And then just listening to more podcasts, and I heard someone who is like really, a mentor to me, Stu Grazier, on Bigger Pockets Money, I think it was back in 2018. And he was talking about turnkey properties and, a business he started and all that with his Naval Academy roommate. So I reached out to him on the Bigger Pockets forums. And they had just started this turnkey company doing turnkey in Milwaukee. And he was like, hey, we have a property available. And so I bought that one. And then 4 months later, he was like, hey, we've got another one. And so I bought that one. And then I actually referred so many people to them that the waiting list between the second and third property I bought from them was like a year and a half. And so I ended up buying 3 turnkey properties in Milwaukee that I still own today. And that was really the first time I bought a property as like a dedicated real estate investment, not one that was a primary residence first. And then really, I was like, okay, this makes sense. They're cash flowing because buying them back in 2018 and then 2019 and I think 2021 or 2020, those 3, you could still, it was like 100K purchase price, 20% down, and they rented for like $1,200 a month. So they like exceeded the 1% rule, which is like you can't find right now. And they've raised rents on them, and I've got fixed, 5.25% interest rates on them. And so they're, are fixed for 30, conventional mortgages on them. So, planning on holding those, I don't have any plans to sell them now. So, and then I realized, once I got into a mastermind group, my original plan was like, well, I'll just buy 1 turnkey property a year for 10 years, and then I'll have 10 properties, right? Great. Yep. And then I got into a mastermind group, and people are doing like active duty. They're doing like apartment complexes. They're doing these BRRRRs like out of state. And I'm like, holy shit, like I can, my perception of what was possible really increased, And so that's what drove me to decide that I wanted to do a BRRRR, because I could get a better return on my capital versus doing the turnkey. And I realized I liked real estate enough to like, okay, I think I would enjoy putting a team together, doing all that kind of stuff. So that's how I got into doing out-of-state BRRRRs and flips in Oklahoma. So that's kind of like the next step. I started doing that in 2020. So.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. I like when I was first starting the real estate thing. So my wife, she said that I should look at real estate when we first got married. And I kind of just laughed at her like, yeah, real estate, whatever. Like, cause I had no knowledge of any of this stuff. I was just thinking, okay, stock market, I'm going to go put money in the stock market. So then I lost money in the stock market. And then I went back to my wife and said, hey, what was it? Cause like this is where remember the emotion I talked about, like I was watching the money and like a hawk. So every day I'd be looking at it like 15 times, like what's my stock doing? What's my stock doing?
That's stressful.
And then the emotion would get involved, and then I would make emotional decisions, and I'd yank money out when I lost it. And I'm like, okay, well, way to just solidify your losses there, buddy. Like keep it in. If you have trust in the company, there's a reason why you bought that stock, stick with it, but I couldn't do that. So that's when I started looking at real estate more. I was like, well, what did you say about real estate? So then I just started researching and doing the math, and I'd go through the Bigger Pocket stuff and listen to all the podcasts I could and learning as much as I could. But as far as I knew, nobody in the world wanted to do this besides me and my wife. Other than those people I hear on podcasts, which are, way out of my league, and
right.
And then before you know it, I'm buying a 62 unit apartment from Japan. I was like, whoa, boy, this is like when I told my wife we were buying an apartment, she was like, we're what? I was thinking maybe a house, but no,
like,
I went straight for apartments. Yeah, I am. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing, honey. It's your fault.
Yeah.
But yeah, it blew my mind. Like the more I learned about it, like you said, you joined a mastermind, and that's what I did. I finally joined a mastermind, and within 6 months, I bought an apartment with some folks that I met on there, and it was like, wow, this is nuts. Like I didn't know there were other people like me, like wanting to do this. So
yeah, the power of surrounding yourself with, not, like people say like-minded people, but not just like-minded, but people that are already doing what you want to do, or people that are people that can stretch your idea of what's possible. I think is a big value of a mastermind group.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that changes your like-mindedness as well. Like, because it changes your mind on things, which then you now become like-minded with them. Like we tell people all the time, you are the 5 people you hang around with most. I think it's was it Sam Zell? I don't remember who said that now off the top of my brain. But if you hang around a bunch of drug dealers and gangbangers, you're probably going to be a drug dealer and gangbanger. But if you hang around a bunch of, multimillionaires that are investing and thinking about the future in a different way, then guess what you're going to start doing? It's pretty awesome, But I loved it, because all I'd ever been around was military folks. I mean, my parents were both Air Force, and then I followed them around as a child. And my mom was out before I was born, but followed my dad around as a child, and that's all I saw was military. And I joined the military right out of high school, and continued on that same trend. I came back from a deployment from Iraq and bought a motorcycle. That's what you do with money. Yeah. Exactly. And I was like, this is nuts, man. I could, looking back on it, it's hard to believe that that's what I was doing. But at the same point, that's all I ever saw. Everybody and their brother did the same thing that I was around. So,
right.
I don't know, but
it's powerful.
But it'll suck you in if you're not, if you don't change the wireframe of your brain and go somewhere else. So,
and then you talk about what you're doing in your normal work environment, and people are like, huh?
Yeah.
That's, you can do that. That's possible, So that's another interesting, having those conversations at work where you're like, they're like, you own 7 houses or whatever it is. And, and then they're like, how? And I'm like, well, have a seat. I would love to tell you
exactly. Let's chat about this.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I struggled for a little while because I was, running ADPI while doing the military thing. So it was one of those am I doing personal business by talking to people about real estate while I'm here? And then I went and had to sit down with our JAG to kind of go, okay, well, where's my limits? I don't want to be getting in trouble for talking to some enlisted guy or somebody and then get in trouble for doing personal business on duty. And really, I'm just trying to help somebody's financial future. No, you need to fix yourself. I remember moving from Japan to DC, and that was the first time I'd walked around and somebody in the office was like, "Wait, I know you from ADPI." And I was like, son of a gun, this is weird. That was a very odd moment, but it gave me an opportunity. I started doing different meetings and telling people about it, financial meetings that they'd have for the Airmen's Council or something like that. I would go and sit down and chat with them about how to secure their finance. Excuse me, how to do better with their finances. And it opened up a lot of opportunities, but it was very, but people didn't have a clue. They were like, what do you mean you own apartment buildings? I was like, well, I own apartment buildings.
Another thing that's funny is people in the real estate world know that there's so many ways to make money in real estate, and there's so many different roles in there. So, but when you tell someone that you work with that you're in real estate, they think that equals you're a real estate agent.
Exactly.
Because they think, you're in real estate, that means real estate. It's no, there's so many things to do in real estate, but people just associate real estate with real estate agent. That's it. So.
Yeah, even my mother-in-law, who knows that I buy apartment buildings and do all the real estate stuff, just a couple weeks ago, she was like, "Oh, so when you transferred your license to Florida?" I was like, "I don't have a license." What do you mean you don't have a license? I said, "I don't sell real estate. I'm not an agent." She's like, "But don't you need a license?" No, I don't. Do you need a license for the 2 houses you own? No, you just own houses. But it's an
education thing.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm still, my wife's mom was born and raised in Cuba, and her dad was born and raised in Spain. But when they moved here, my mother-in-law's parents had lived with my mother-in-law for a little while they were renting out the house that they owned until the mortgage was paid off, and then they moved into their own house. So they were trying to play a long game of just they didn't have the sophistication, but they knew the logic behind what they were doing is, holding their money inside of their house. And okay, we'll just rent that out until it becomes something. So that was fed into Raquel's brain. But she didn't quite, she was invested in the TSP, but it was almost all in the G fund because she was just I just need to invest in something. But she didn't realize she didn't look into it past, I just know I need to save, because that's what she saw from her parents, So then when I started doing all the research and going, boy, we really need to fix this, because I'm a researcher like crazy anyway, so I just digging into all of it, and then we adjusted all of our TSP stuff and started looking at the different real estate thing. There's so many different ways to get involved in real estate; it's insane. You could be just the passive guy, just a passive person that just buys a house or two once in a while and lets it go. Or you could just jump right in and buy, 1,000 units at a time. It's insane, but you can go buy 1,000 units at one time. It's crazy.
Yeah. You mentioned the TSP, it's painful when you hear someone say like, hey, my, the stock market has, done really well over the last 10 years, but my TSP, like the balance has hardly changed. And you're just like, is everything in the G fund? They're like, yeah. I'm just like, oh, yeah. It's like painful.
That's like, the automatic thing.
Yeah. That's for those that don't know, the G fund is just like, it's like bonds and, it's like the lowest risk, lowest reward. It's what you want to allocate your stuff to when you're like 60, 65, not when you're 24. And people it defaults to the G fund, or it used to. I don't know if it still does, and so people missed out on 5, 10 plus years of like stock market gains. And it's just like painful to hear that.
That was my wife. Very much so, and it was like, oh, you got a solid 2% return on your money. Great job.
Great.
But who was I to judge? Because I had $0 in savings. I had nothing. Like, well, at least you were saving money. I didn't have a freaking clue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't fathom where I'd be if I'd have learned some of this stuff at a younger age, which is one of the reasons that, with ADPI, we're trying to impact as many as we can early to get them thinking about it in a different way and be like, no, like you could do what you did and buy a house at every assignment, rent it out when you leave. And now you have multiple, you could retire with 10 houses because you lived in 10 different places, depending on how often you move. If you move as often as I did every 2 years, then yeah, you have 10 different houses, So, but no, people don't think about it that way.
Yeah. And someone that just does that is like ahead of 98% of the country.
Yes.
The country,
very much.
I mean,
I think the average person's like, if I recall correctly from something I heard recently, it was like the average American's net worth is like $500. It's something silly like that. Like it's like nobody, obviously not nobody, but it's so ingrained in us to use our credit cards all the time, to put everything on loan all the time, which I've got no issues. Like I'm a certified Dave Ramsey coach. So I understand the concepts that he talks about, but I also understand the strategic use of debt and how you can use debt to buy assets and make a big difference in your life. But I think for 90% of America, they should listen to Dave Ramsey and everything he says.
Absolutely.
Get rid of your credit cards. Just stop doing silliness and teach your kids to do that as well, because and show them that that's what you're doing, because man, oh man, like it's crazy to watch what people are doing with their money or not doing with their money, or remembering what I used to do with my money. Like that, thankfully I never had credit cards or anything like that, but it was, I mean, I might as well have with what I was doing, but I could have at least been getting points. So
yeah, I remember listening to Dave Ramsey like years ago when he was just on, AM radio, and I always enjoyed listening to it because I've always been interested in personal finance. Like I really like personal finance, and hearing some of the stories of people calling in where they're like, they say what debt they have and like what their income is, and it's just like painful hearing some of those stories, and then how he just like rips into them, but it's, he's great at getting people to zero. Once he gets, that's where he and I differ on like strategy. Cause he's very like, he's very against any kind of debt and all that, and like real estate. But his advice is sound, like you said, for the vast majority of America. The vast majority of America would be infinitely better by doing what he recommends. But like for that very small chunk of people like you and myself, like where it's like, okay, we can do other things, we can leverage money, in safe, unique ways to, grow the wealth. But like the average person should not be doing that stuff, because they're not going to do the research. They're not going to join a mastermind group. They're not going to take the steps needed to do it, correctly. So yeah, but yeah, he's great. I still like listening to him.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to listen to him and like go through again, listen to those stories that happened and all the stuff. But when you hear about what he did, though, like as an educational point, right? So he was doing a lot of short-term debt with other people's money, using the OPM with like 12 to 24 month debt with the bank. Not doing like strategic long-term debt. Like if you did nothing but do bridge debt right now, you'd be in a world of hurt, which is how he ended up going bankrupt, because like all the bridge, like when those local banks were like, dude, you have millions of dollars in 12-month debt. millions and millions of dollars of 12-month debt. There's no way we want to have all of that in one person. So they started calling all his debt. It's like, well, yeah, that's not wise debt to get, especially if that's all the debt you have. Like, I mean, yeah, you could do that for a project or two and use bridge debt or use something like that. But man, yeah, you're gonna lose your socks in a heartbeat, and that's what he did. And yeah, I mean, now obviously it scared him away, and he's done really well for himself, and still a big fan of capitalism, and obviously because he's running a mega business at the moment. So
yeah, he is.
But good on him. It's well done. So that said, what kind of thoughts do you have on? I mean, your kid is just over a year, but what kind of thoughts do you have on how you're going to be talking to your kid about money? What kind of influences you want to have with your kid on money? What are your thoughts there on how you're going to push that forward?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and he's not really talking yet. He's like just babbling, and so I thankfully have some time to figure that out. And that's why I like being in a group like Abundance, where there's hundreds of other people that have figured that out and made mistakes, and you can learn from their mistakes when it comes to talking to kids about money. But I think it's a lot of it is just showing him, not necessarily telling him, but kind of showing him like, hey, here's how, here's where we got to make sure we got to make sure we save money. We don't want to spend everything. And I think just talking through things as life events come up, like what is a credit card? Okay. Let's talk about what a credit card is. Let's talk about how we pay it off every month, no matter what we spend below our means. I think, I haven't really put too much, because he's so young, I haven't put too much exactly into how to do it. But I think, I like the idea of, some kind of an allowance just to show him like, hey, here's your income. You can spend it how you want to. You can save it. You can do extra stuff around the house to earn more income. But if you want to buy something big, you got to save up for it. Maybe depending on the item, we'd meet him halfway and but it really just driving those lessons through various things, especially reiterating that just because you want something doesn't mean you can have something. Cause I think that, having that kind of mindset, especially with parents that grow up in a household where they didn't have everything, or maybe they were, they lived, their parents were maybe paycheck to paycheck, or they didn't have the stuff that they wanted and all that. And then they get to a point where they can afford stuff, and then they want to give their kid everything they have, everything they want. And then that's that kind of conditions the kid to if I want something, I can get it. How do I get it? Mm-hmm. Credit card, So if you're not teaching them that stuff, it can be very, detrimental, obviously. But I guess that's a good question for you. How have you done it? I mean, do you do the allowance thing, or?
At the moment, no. So I've definitely talked about investing, and kind of, showing what we do. And, there's, we've been talking about business owning, and, we just went a couple days ago, went to, do some shark tooth hunting. There's this place a couple hours away from here where you can just go, and they dig up all this old dirt that's got a bunch of shark teeth in it. Maybe you can get a megalodon tooth type of thing. So the boys were super excited. They thought it was awesome. We found some pieces of megalodon teeth. So, I mean, you're the root, it was this, it was an inch and a half, thick, where it broke off. So I was like, goodness gracious, I couldn't imagine, this tooth had to be huge. But anyways, so while we were out there, I was like, hey, what do you think? We've got, I think we have 270 teeth or something like that we found. So while we were hunting, and he was just loving life, I was like, well, what do you think about, what can we do with all these teeth? And started talking about okay, well, maybe we make jewelry of it, but find out how much we could sell some shark teeth jewelry for, and then he was like, yeah, that would be a good idea. And then we've got an au pair, and she was like, yeah, I'll help do that, so then now we can make a project out of, okay, well, we went and we spent this much money on going to go do this shark tooth hunt, and now, so we need that money back plus the supplies that we have. So let's do the math, calculate it out. And that's one of our plans now, because that was just a couple days ago. So now I've got to get all the stuff to make the necklaces and bracelets and all that type of stuff. But at least it gets him thinking about business and money, and now he's going to earn money. So, I mean, I've even started talking about, okay, well, how about we do, I get 75% of the profits until I get my money back, and then we split it down to 50-50, or maybe 75-25. We switch it over once I get all my money back. Now you get 75%, I get 20%. So we're just having conversations about what that money looks like. Now I've got to write it all out on paper so that he can kind of
Sure.
it's hard to track all in an 8-year-old's brain. But he loves being able to talk about money. And I'd say one of the hardest things is, this might be easier for you than it was for me, but a lot of what I heard was, no, we can't afford that. No, like, we don't have enough money for that. And
yes,
I still say that rather often, not because we can't afford it, because we can. Like, I mean, he's asking for a bouncy ball, right? But we have 7,000 other bouncy balls. Do you really need a bouncy ball? Like, what could we use that money for? So now it's more, I'm trying to make sure that the language that I say is more, not to be cliche, but more abundance mindset as opposed to scarcity mindset. Like, no, we could totally afford that. We have the money for it. Like, no big deal. But is that really where we want to spend our money? Because if we spend our money on that, then I can't use that money for, when you want to go to some, islands of adventure out in Orlando or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's where it seems like it'd be a good introduction of like wants versus needs.
Yeah.
And then also introducing the idea, which I'm sure is tough for kids to understand. Well, I mean, it's tough for most adults to understand, but like delayed gratification, like not getting it right now because it feels good. It feels good to get that toy in the store right now, but you have 7 of these other ones at home. So you just wait till but in the moment they see it, they want it, which is how, I mean, that's how adults are too,
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. But I think that getting that delayed gratification, hey, you can buy this right now, but remember where you said you wanted to save up for a guitar? So if you buy this now, it's going to be a lot longer until you can get that guitar. So which one do you want? Do you want the ball right now, or do you want to extend the time until you can get the guitar or whatever, the bigger purchase down the road? And then you can see them like thinking, and and let them make that decision. So
yeah, and then they could feel the pain of the wrong decisions too at that point. And it's funny because we have my son had a wallet that had like, I don't know, $380 or something like that. And if I brought him in here, he would tell you to the dollar how much was in there. But when we moved from Virginia to Florida, it is no longer around. Our only assumption is, at this point, with everything that we've done to try to find it, is that the movers put it in their pocket, thinking it was their Spider-Man wallet, perhaps. And it is completely gone. Like, and so, now it's been a talk about, okay, well, why do some people do that with money? Like, how are they thinking about money versus how you're thinking about money? Because like, we can replenish this and we can earn money back, and we could, like, there's a billion ways to make that money back. So, don't let it be the end of the world for you. Like, let's figure out, and he's fine with it. He's like, all right, well, I mean, let's figure out how to get it back, So we replenished the majority of it. Well, really all of it, other than what he owed us, because we bought something else for him. Like, to your point, this is your money that we're spending. So
right.
But clearly somebody who's stealing money has a bad mindset about money. So let's have a conversation about that. Like, there's, we could be watching TV about something like, was that a wise move that they just did? Like with this financial thing or with this whatever. I sound almost like that's all I do is teach them. I feel like that, but anytime there's an opportunity and I think of it, I'm going to say something, like, because I never had those thoughts until I was much older. So if I can get it ingrained in his brain now to think about money that way, then great, So
yeah. And I think another, my wife, she didn't get a lot of money conversations growing up either. So it's, but thankfully we've both been intentional. We've already been talking about, like, how are we going to handle that? And I think that's another thing, is like making sure, the spouse is on the same page as well. So that you're, unified with how you're going to talk about all that. But the thing that I've thought about a bit more, rather than like the tactical day-to-day stuff, is like, how do you have the conversation with like an older kid, maybe not that much, like, older than 10, once they're really starting to understand the concepts of like wealth. And there's, these people drive this kind of car and live in this kind of house, and these people live in this kind of house, So how do you have the conversation of like, wealth and, the transfer of wealth, and like how, like me and your mom are wealthy, but that doesn't mean you are, that doesn't mean you're wealthy, And so, you're living with us now, but you're going to have to do something on your own someday. And how do you transfer or not transfer that wealth to them? How do you talk to them in a way about wealth to know that they're going to have to build something on their own if that's something that they want, and and do you give anything to your kids? Like, how do you like, if they're going off to college, do you pay for their college? Well, I guess my wife's already transferred her GI Bill to our son, but like, what about groceries when they're living in college? Do you pay for that or not? Mm-hmm. Do they need to get a job? What part-time versus full-time? Do they have to work in the summer? Like, I think that's going to be tougher because there's so many different ways to do it. And there's 100 different opinions on how to do that correctly. There's because I had buddies in college that had to work part-time or full-time because their parents were like, hey, we're paying for your tuition. That's it. And then other friends who like parents paid for everything because they didn't want them to work because they wanted them to focus on school. So like, and there's valid points to all that. In even a bigger level of conversation, does it make sense to even go to college at all? Yeah. But like, just for the sake of conversation, like, how do you handle that college thing? Because there's no like necessarily right or wrong answer, and a lot of it is based off of what we did growing up because that's our this is the way that it was done for me. So obviously that is the best way to do it, which, is it? Maybe it's not.
May or may not be true. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I do think about that kind of stuff kind of like further down the road more than like, here's why you can't have that toy right now, but it's probably because my son is so young. He's not even like, having that stuff yet. And just my personality type, I just zoom ahead years in the future for some reason to think about conversations that we'll be having 15 years from now. But that's another thing. I think about that more often, I think, than those tactical day-to-day conversations about money. But I think it's one of those, like, reaching out to Go Bros and folks I know, like, hey, my son said this, like, how do you handle that? Or what book did you read to talk about money in this way to your kids? So I think I'm not sure how I'm going to handle all that stuff. But that's why I'm in a group like Abundance. So
exactly. But to your point, like, there's 10 to 15,000 different ways to do it, right? So like, we've had a couple guys on the podcast that have talked about different things that they're planning to do. Like, and then like I loved Brandon Turner's idea about buying a house for his kids, right? And then when they graduate, it's theirs. Like, you could sell it, take the money, and go to college. You could sell it, take the money, and do whatever you want with it. You could keep it and keep the cash flow. Like, let's talk about it and figure it out. But I think I think figuring out what you're going to do after they graduate is a conversation that's had up until the point they graduate, right? And it's something that you like, learning what because you may, if I were to guess, like, if I look at my kids and say, okay, well, I would imagine I'm going to react or do something a little bit different with each one of the kids. It doesn't mean I'm going to be unfair or whatever. But one kid may be really good with money, and the other one may not be so good with money, and I have to adjust a little bit on what they're planning to do. But there's one guy I was talking to that he said that he's got the money set aside for either basically to supply them for 2 years. After you graduate, I'll take care of you for 2 years. If you want to chase an aspiration, a dream, and go do something, then I'll help fund it for 2 years. After 2 years, it's you. Like, I'm not funding your dream. If you haven't been able to accomplish something in your dream, like whether you want to, like, maybe you want to go be an actor, when you go to California, you want to be an actor. So I'll help support you for 2 years as you're chasing that dream. But after 2 years, if you haven't gotten to the point where you could sustain yourself, we're done. Like, I'm not an infinite pool of investment, because to your point, there's another guy in GoBundance who was like having that conversation with his kids. He's like, no. Us are not rich. Mommy and daddy have money. You do not. Like, right. So you have to figure out how to go do this. There's a book, I think it's called, is it called The Rockefeller Way?
I've heard of that one.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. But I enjoyed listening to that one for sure, and kind of like, okay, well, how do I strategically plan my future to where they get to make decisions on money, but at the same point, if they're not the right decisions, they don't get the money type of stuff. Like, you could set it up in various different trusts and have all the stuff set up to where like they can only use the money for certain things, and and trying to plan that all out. And I think talking with talking with each other and talking with other GoBundance guys and various other wealthy folks that are kind of already structured up in a way that we like, that'll help us kind of figure that out, because I haven't fully figured that out by any means. My oldest is 8, he's 8.5 years old, so I haven't I got a little while before I figure it out, but I do want to figure it out super quickly, because the first 8 years disappeared pretty quickly, and I would imagine the next 8 are going to disappear just as fast. So
yeah, how do you handle? So here's another thing I've thought about is you see a lot of parents who are like pushing their kids in a certain direction. Yeah. And I think that's like, I'm, at least right now, my wife and I were like, we don't, whatever he wants to pursue, we're fine with. We don't want to push him in any one direction, because I think a lot of parents are like, or maybe they take an interest in soccer or whatever. And it's like, okay, you need to be the best. You need to be a professional soccer player. And then it's like, fast forward, the kid's not interested in soccer anymore, but you don't keep pushing them. And I think that, at least my perception of it, is when parents are pushing kids in a certain direction, it's almost like a narcissism of the parent, because they want, like, they're pushing the kid to be a doctor so that they can say, my kid's a doctor. Now, obviously they want a good life for their kid and, they, be wealthy or whatever. Like, but I see a lot of that, and I'm just like, man, like, why push your kid? Like, let them go where they want to go and just support whatever that is, within reason, obviously, but just be supportive, because they'll be successful in something that they enjoy doing. And if you push them in one direction, there's going to be friction down the road with that, because if they don't actually want to do it, then why keep pushing them for that one thing? So that's something I think about. Have you encountered that at all? Like with you and your wife, like, do you guys push them in any direction, or are you more like, we'll support you wherever you want to go, as long as it's not something, absurd or unhealthy or something like that?
Well, if I did start to push them, I'm not going to say it now, because you just would have been judgmental on me for doing it.
That's true, I would have.
But no. I've actually had that conversation multiple times, because Adam and Rourke both love golf, right? And I'm a big fan of golf. So I tend to think, okay, do they only love golf because daddy likes golf?
Yeah.
Like, am I pushing them to do this? So like I told Raquel, I said, we'll keep funding it as long as they're enjoying it and want to do it. But if they stop and don't want to do it, we're not going to quit mid-season. Like, you made a commitment, we're going to go through with it. Right. So let's finish the season. Like, we've got a golf match later on today. I think he'd rather go to Busch Gardens or Islands of Adventure because it's summer and he wants to be able to do that. But at the same point, he loves golf. So he's like, yeah, let's go do it. Let's go figure this out, and we go golf together and all this stuff. So sometimes I feel like I'm pushing that. But I try to have the conversation with him, like, hey, bud, like, is this something you really want to enjoy? Should we be taking a break from this? He's like, no, I don't want to take a break. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, I just want to make sure that, I'm not pressuring you, but there's still always that thing in the back of my mind, like, just like he started playing hockey before COVID started, and then COVID shut down the hockey rinks and everything, and we weren't able to go in for a little while, and we just haven't gone back, especially after the move. But that was always a sport that I wanted to play, but we couldn't afford to play. So it's like, okay, well, I got him into hockey. He likes playing, and now am I pushing him towards this stuff? It's always a fear, because I love golf and I love hockey, and I'm, trying to push him into those, but at the same point, not really push him into those. So, I have the same concept and theory as you, as like, hey, just kind of let them figure their own way out. Like, every action has an equal opposite reaction. So if I push really hard, he's either going to push really hard back, or I'm going to knock him over. It's like, I don't want either of those to happen. I want him to kind of find his own way. Yeah.
Well, you brought up a good point about commitment. I mean, like, hey, they're talking about how they want to do golf for the season or whatever. And it's okay, but if you do this, you're going to do it. You're going to do it at least through the season, and then we'll reassess. If you don't like it after the season, then we won't do it again. But you signed it, and that's different. I think that's not necessarily like pushing them, because if they're like, I don't want to go golf, it's like, well, you signed up for golf, so like we're doing it, right? So that's different. That's just teaching them, like, hey, you said you're going to do this, you committed it, you told mommy and daddy you wanted to do it, so we're doing it. That's different. But that's another good point about just committing to something and following through with it. That's another important lesson. Whether or not if you halfway through you don't like it as much, you committed to it, so you can end it at the end of the season and maybe pursue something else. But for now, you gotta show up, because you said you would.
Yeah. And I think that's a good lesson on both sides, like you said. So, that's what I try to stick to. And, if my kid turns out to be a terrible mess, then none of you guys should listen to me. But
yeah,
time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah. One activity, just because I did when I was younger, I did swimming, and I was really good at it. But the big deterrent for it, and there's a part of me that, if our son Cal wants to swim, great. But it's like, they start really early in the morning, like the swim meet stuff, like super early, and then you're just there like all day long. and it's like, so, I mean, if he wants to do swimming, we'll support it. But a part of me is kind of like, if he doesn't, that's okay too. Something that's like not super inconvenient for the parents would be ideal. I'm not going to push him in that direction, but yeah,
that's fine. Yeah. Well, I think just about any sport has some inconvenience to it, unless it's strictly like an after school sport that they're doing during, like, for school, like, and that's it.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, I ran cross country, and that was a school one, but I had to wake up early,
Right.
get out of the bus to go to the invitationals, like, that started at 8 a.m. So I was at the bus at 6 a.m. and doing the whole thing. So, it was always a pain, but my parents they were never able to go to a majority of that stuff. So I just walked my happy butt to school or got a ride from somebody else and figured it all out. So my parents didn't have to suffer through that. But
and running is definitely the lower middle class / poor parents' work. Because, like, what do you need? Just shoes? Okay, we can do it. Got it. Hockey? Nah, not so much. Lacrosse? No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the same thing with wrestling, because, like, all I needed was wrestling shoes, sold, right?
Yeah.
So then I did wrestling.
Well, we support you to wrestle, then, son.
Yeah, totally down. Yes, get at it. So yeah, cross country, wrestling, and track. That's about what I did. I tried playing football for a little while, but I didn't hit 5 feet tall or 100 pounds till 10th grade. Well, the summer before 10th grade. So, like, football was not. I wasn't really built for football. I'm a little bit more built for football now, but not then.
Yeah.
Like,
wrestling,
I was a late bloomer. Yeah, wrestling. I mean, I was in 10th grade and still able to cut down to the 96-pound weight class for tournaments. It's like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't grow. I grew up in Texas, where wrestling, like, we didn't even. I didn't even know what wrestling was.
I might get a little visitor.
Yeah,
Say hi. What's up?
what's up, dude?
Oh, you want to say hi? No. For those of you just listening, all he's doing is waving. He's not actually saying hi.
Good morning.
Doug said good morning. You want to say good morning?
Good morning.
How's it going?
He said, how's it going? Let me put this in your ear. You can hear him. He said, how's it going?
You ready for golf later today? Golf?
What do you
gonna
think?
play golf later?
I mean, I play golf.
Yeah, you do play golf. Do you like golf?
Yeah.
Do you only like it because Daddy likes it?
No.
No.
Fun.
Good.
You're like,
Said the right answer.
You're like, please don't say yes.
You crazy boy. All right, can Daddy finish his call? All right, can you say goodbye to Mr. Doug?
Bye.
Bye.
See you later, buddy.
Do you know how pink egg is?
I don't know where your egg is, buddy, but you're making the middle of this podcast really awesome. Love you, buddy.
That's funny.
And welcome to fatherhood at home.
Yeah. So with wrestling, because I grew up in Texas, where wrestling, like, I didn't know anyone that wrestled. It just wasn't a thing where in Houston, at least. But, like, the cutting weight thing, that always seemed, when I heard about that, because I played rugby in college, and there were a lot of wrestlers that also played rugby. And I heard about the cutting weight thing, where it's like, oh, you're going to lose like 20 pounds, like, before a thing. Like, that sounds really unhealthy. Was that a thing at that small of an age?
Sure was.
Gosh.
Yeah. The other one had to come in now because the youngest one came in, so now Adam had to come in.
Spider-Man.
But yeah,
hiding behind.
Yep, Spider-Man for sure. He's a big fan of the old Spider-Man. But he's got a shark tooth on speed too. Show the shark tooth. After we just got done, like, telling him about the shark tooth. So here's one of the necklaces that they gave, one of the cheap ones.
How much is that necklace?
We're going to build nicer ones. That one he got for free while we were there. But we could probably sell that one for maybe $6.
This one?
Yeah, I'm not going to sell it. I'm just saying that we probably could. The ones you build, we can sell for probably $10. Yeah. All right. But yeah, cutting weight was for sure a thing. The hard part was, so you didn't get to cut as much, right? Because your weigh-in was the morning of the meet. So if it was a Saturday morning invitational, then your weigh-in was that morning. So if you were cutting weight, it couldn't be a ridiculous amount because you had to recover enough to be able to go and wrestle. But you could still cut, 7 pounds in a short time and then fuel up on a bunch of water. I mean, you running in a sauna suit, going for a run in a sauna suit, sweating your butt off, just pulling all the liquid out, and is what it is. That was part of what it was. I never really had to worry about it much because I was always so small. But I knew plenty of people on my team that were cutting weight pretty hard.
A buddy of mine that I played rugby with, he was actually in the Air Force after college, but he was a state champion in Virginia for wrestling, and they were encouraged. Their coaches encouraged them to dip, chewing tobacco as a way to
just spit
more cut weight. I was like, wow, you're encouraging these high school kids to do dip, to cut weight. That world was very different. I was like, wow, that's crazy. So.
Yeah, I mean, there were people on the bus all the time on the way to spit in bottles so that they wouldn't swallow any of their saliva, so that at the infinitesimal amount. But if you're overweight, you're not wrestling. You can't, it ain't happening. So people did what they had to do. If they were 135 pound weight class and they're usually around 140 pounds, they're cutting 5 pounds before every meet. So
wow. Sweating it, and I guess most of that's just water weight, right?
Yeah, you cut a lot of water weight, and then you just fuel back up on it. Now, there was only one tournament I actually remember cutting weight for, and it was to cut down to, it was to make sure I was below 96 for a tournament. Because in a regular match, there was no such thing as a 96. It was only 103. But there was one tournament where I was doing that on the bus, but I still weighed in without an issue under 96 pounds. Yeah. So
that can't be healthy for how old were you for that?
Probably 16. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez.
15, 16. Yeah. Yeah. Probably not great. Probably not great health wise. Yeah. But, and it was funny because you look at some of the other folks, they were much larger and much more muscular, because I was such a late bloomer on getting, any testosterone in my body at all. But all these other guys who had, hit puberty at 10 years old and they're beefy and 6-pack abs. I'm where did I don't know where either one of us cut it from, because you got nothing but muscle and I've got nothing but bones. Where are we cutting this weight from? But we figure it out. There's obviously a lot of water in there to lose. So yeah. But that was nothing that, to go back to the parent thing, my parents never pushed me on that. And that's one thing that I wish my parents would have done is make me commit to some of those things. Because when I would quit halfway through a football season because, A, I would never play. B, I was too afraid to go play because, going back to that thing, I'm getting hit by people who, hit puberty 10 years ago, and here I am trying to figure out life, and I'm I don't even know what to do, and I'm getting destroyed. I was like, this is no
mustaches.
I know, they've got mustaches, and here I am, still hoping for armpit hair, and now I'm the furry bear. It's ridiculous. Anyways,
good beard, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But yeah, I wish that my parents would have taught me a little bit more about the commitment side on that. I wish that I would have committed a bit more, is what I should say. It was on me. I should have committed a bit more, but I bounced around, and I almost always went back to cross country because that was something I was good at. I could run long distances. I still can. I can still do pretty well, even though I'm a little chubbier now than I used to be. But I kept trying things that I thought would make me look cool. And I think that's another one of those conversations to have with the kids. Go for what you enjoy, go for what you want to do, not for what you think people want to do, want you to do. So I don't really know how to attack that conversation yet, because there hasn't been a ton of social pressure yet for a third grader going into fourth grade, right? It's not really, that social pressure is not there yet, but I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with that.
One thing that gives me, I guess, anxiety isn't the right word, but that I'm concerned with in the future is the whole bullying thing, and kids not fitting, they feel like they don't fit in, or other kids being mean to them. Have you encountered any of that yet? That's something that that we do think about, my wife and I.
So I've had some of the conversations, but we haven't actually encountered it yet. Not real bullying, some picking on, right? But one of the ways that I typically talk about, especially now that we've got a little girl, so I've got 2 older boys, and now we just had the little girl. So I'm telling them, I don't care. You will not ever hit somebody or bully somebody unless they're bullying you. If you're protecting somebody else or protecting yourself, it's game on. You do what you have to do. There's going to be a bully out there one day that I am not going to have an issue at all if you punch him in the face. I don't care if you get suspended from school. I don't care what goes on. If that bully is picking on your brother, picking on your sister, picking on one of your friends, doing violence to somebody else, protect your friend, protect your family. That's all. Like, I don't care one way or another. So that's more of the conversation I have, and I word it a little bit differently when I'm talking to an 8-year-old. But it's more like if in protection of self and others, it doesn't bother me. You do what you have to do. Like that's your job. It's your job as a man as you're growing up to learn how to protect yourself and others. And if it happens, it happens. But if I find out you're the bullying one, if you're the one doing the bullying, we're gonna have issues, right? Because like once in a while he'll do something to his, like the older one will do something to his little brother, and I'm like, you see what you just did? That's really close to bullying. Like, you don't think about it as bullying, but that's what you're doing to your little brother. And he's like, really? I said, yeah, look, and I'll explain how it all goes. And he's like, well, I didn't think about it. I was like, yeah, well, that's what it is. Like, you're picking on him, using your size and your strength to overpower what your little brother wants to do. So
they're also learning about rules of engagement.
Yes. Yes, for sure. Yes. Yeah. If I can get some good ROEs for him, put them on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's funny. Adrian Akai, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He's another GoBundance guy, but he does, like super involved dad, owns a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gym, black belt in Jiu-Jitsu.
He's up in Philly, right? Or Florida?
No, he's in Florida. Yeah, he moved down to Florida. Yeah, so he's a phenomenal dude. I like him a lot. But he's got like a chart and everything that he shared with me that they use for. So they use it for the kids in the Gracie gyms. Like, hey, if hey, making your bed. Like, if you do this X amount of times on the chart, then you get a color on your belts, like, and different things to help kind of motivate self-discipline and self-control. And then he built one for his family as well, and they'll sit around at dinner and go over the chart. And I need to build that discipline in to have more of those conversations with the kids as far as discipline and taking care of your room and doing all the stuff and making sure that you're following through with commitments and et cetera, et cetera. But if I think about it and you want it, I'll try to send you the chart over. He sent it to us in email, but.
That's a really good idea, and it shows everyone in the house how they're doing. The progress and having a reward of some kind, an incentive and all that. That's a really good idea. I guess that's the other thing. Like, what age do you even start that kind of stuff? 4, 5? Like,
it's pretty early. You can start it. Figuring out and like showing incentives and everything you can use pretty early. Like,
right.
What we were trying to get Adam to stop sucking his thumb. He sucked his thumb until he was 5, I think it was. But we're like, what do we got to do? And like and then we found he was super incentivized at school by these little by these little clothespins they would get. They start off with 3 and they can earn more, or they could get taken away. And he would be very upset if he came home and only had 2 because he lost a clothespin for whatever reason, right? And then, so we started using that because he was motivated by it to help him stop sucking his thumb. Like, okay, well, when you're at home, you're going to have 3 clothespins. Do I see you sucking your thumb? I'm going to have to take one. And then, that boy quit quickly. So then we had a conversation about, okay, well, you're motivated by these types of things, and let's figure it out. So then we started, trying to think through how do I use what they're motivated by to get them to do certain things. Some of it is money. Sometimes they're motivated by money. Sometimes they're motivated by there's various different things, but the conversation is always, I don't know, for me, like communicating with the kids is something I'm constantly thinking about. It's always, what words am I using around them? What am I teaching them with the actions that I do? And that's, I think, one of the bigger things is, things are caught, not taught oftentimes with kids. So what are they seeing you do that they're catching on to? And then how can I use my words to solidify what they see me doing? And boy, that's tough. It's like a constant brain motion.
Yeah, that's something I've thought about is like, being a good parent is like, they learn so much more, it seems, from watching you than what you tell them. So it really is like, the whole like do as I say, not as I do. Like that's not, doesn't work. That's not how it works, right? So then it motivates you to like, oh, let me make sure I'm like driving not like a jerk, or let me, all that. Let me make sure I, talk to retail employees at stores like in a nice way, and because my son is too young. He's 13, 14 months, but like, they start watching and learning that stuff probably a lot earlier than we think they do. And so, and especially like talking to your spouse, making sure you're respectful of each other, because they learn how to talk to how to talk to people, how to communicate with people based off of what you're doing. And I think that's something most parents probably never even think about. But that's definitely motivating for me, even before he can learn from that, is like, man, let me make sure I'm, continuing to do things the right way or fix things here and there, to get ready for him to be watching all that and learning how to live life from watching us. So,
yeah, because he will. For sure. It's the same thing. Like one of the books I've absolutely love is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, where it talks about where you get your mindset on money and like where it comes from. And typically it's from what you saw your parents do. And that's where we get a majority of our stuff, right? Which is why abuse victims tend to be abusers later on, right? Because that, like, until somebody can break that cycle, right? The self-awareness isn't there to get out of that cycle. Like my dad was an abuse victim. His stepfather would abuse him and treat him like garbage. His real dad died when he was like 1 or 2 years old. And his stepdad treated him like garbage. So I'm still not sure entirely how he broke out of that thought process, but never once did he lay his hands on us, ever. One time he threatened it, and that was because I punched my sister in the face. And he said, if you do that again, we're going to go outside. We'll see if you can hit me. And I was like, never doing that again. But in my defense, my sister did throw me down the stairs, and that's why I punched her in the face. So, jeez. I mean, I did have a justification.
That's now, where does that fall in the ROE? I mean, that's
I know. There weren't clear rules of engagement. That's the problem. If I had clear rules of engagement, I would have known what to do. But if the ROE was never ever, no matter what, don't punch your sister. Okay, well, I would have known, but I thought it was self-defense. I got thrown down the stairs.
Right.
But that's ridiculous. I don't remember where I was going with that. Oh, yeah, the caught not taught stuff, right? So, but just kind of, I don't know. I never had a lot of that example, so it took a long time to rewire that wireframe, like until somebody came in and like mangled it all up. That somebody being Raquel, right? Like mangle up that wireframe so I could build a new one, reset my brain on where to move forward. Because without that, I mean, you're stuck. So if we can make sure that our kids' wireframe is as well built as possible, but also moldable, because there's going to be we're going to put something in their brain that is not going to be useful to them, and then we have to figure out how to make sure they know how to push that out. So
gotta somehow not screw them up. I think it's, like your dad, we all have, everyone has unresolved trauma, and I think that's what leads to, behavioral problems or relationship problems or whatever. And then there's a spectrum. Some people were, abused growing up, and, that's obviously going to create more impact than just someone that was maybe ignored sometimes by parents, but there's still impacts of that are reflected. They're manifested in some way as an adult. And if you don't talk about it, I think it's really just talking about it. That's why, I'm glad that the stigma of like therapists and talking to people is like, like our parents' generation is like, oh, that's weak. I don't talk about it. No, that's weak. So I'm glad that stigma is kind of going away, especially in the military when it comes to like PTSD. Like that's the cure for PTSD is talking about it, not just coming home, burying it deep down. Like that's how you have alcoholism, suicide, depression, all that kind of stuff. But it's by talking about it with other people, especially people who are like professionally trained to listen, I guess. That's how you overcome those things, because so many of our problems can be traced back to unresolved trauma, usually childhood trauma. But it doesn't have to be sexual abuse or whatever. Like it can just be the way your parents talk to you or talk to other people or what they did or didn't do. The parents were probably still doing their best, but they're also a product of their own upbringing. So it's just a matter of talking about and identifying those things. And but it's kind of I see it as like our duty as parents to kind of, really just not screw up the kids,
Yes. There's somebody that I don't remember who it was recently that said, it's I know I'm going to screw up my kids. I just hope it's not too much, like
Right.
we're all going to do something that screws up our kids, but I just hope it's not too much. I mean, there's been multiple times where I did something. I was like, this is one of those moments. You got to screw up your kid. Fix it now.
You can't always remember, like, what if they're in like a really bad car crash?
Yeah.
Like, that's going to but what, there's only so much you can do about that, but that's going to create some serious trauma. They're going to be uncomfortable being or who knows how it's going to manifest. But then that's where it's like, okay, let's go talk to a therapist. We can talk through that and then kind of minimize the future damage of something like that. So,
yeah, for sure. And it's, I want to go back to something you said though. Like one thing that I think is extremely important is how we interact with people in front of our kids, right? Because they're going to learn a lot from that. Right down to the waiters that are waiting your table. Like
that's such a good example,
especially when it's one of the, like, the amount of times you've seen a waiter or waitress just get destroyed by somebody, like yelled at or disrespected or ignored completely. Like I don't even like to say, even if it's not saying something demeaning, if they're just walking up and they don't even acknowledge that the person's there, they don't nothing. I'm like, no, like they're taking care of you. Like, be respectful to who they are. And, so I almost always started off with a joke. Like, I want to, like, there's always some sort of relationship there. And then usually when we go to like a local restaurant, I won't say usually, but, it's become fun for my son now, but like we'll sit down at a restaurant, and if it's if I get really good service, the person's really fun to be around. Like we'll play a game where I'll say pick a number between, usually it's like 3 and 10 or something like that. Like, hey, my son and I are having a disagreement. Like, I need you to help us figure it out. Pick a number between 3 and 10, and then I'll give them a tip. I'll just add a 0 onto whatever they say and give them a tip for that. And it's fun for my son. I'm like, look, we get to bless this person. Like, they've been taking care of us all night. They would normally only get a $10 tip here. Now we just gave them a $50 tip. That's gonna make their night. They're gonna have a wonderful time. They're gonna have a story to tell somebody else, and hopefully they pass on some good enjoyment. And now he's like, Daddy. Can we do the pick a number game today? Like it's fun for him now. Like, I'm showing him that we can, like, this is something we can do with money that we all get enjoyment out of. Like, and it's not like that silly toy that you want, like we're blessing somebody and they're happy and you can see it all over their face. And,
and it teaches generosity,
Yeah, for sure.
That's something that my dad definitely did not teach me, is generosity, that I've had to kind of like, and GoBundance has been huge with that, because when I first did my one sheet, it was like genuine contribution, and it was nothing. And so that inspired me to, because I wasn't comfortable. Sorry, we're kind of going off something else here, but like, I wasn't as comfortable giving money away, because like, I don't know where that's going. Like, is it actually going to help someone or not? Like, maybe in the future I'll be involved with or I have a buddy that's involved with some kind of charity where it's like, okay, I know where the money's going. Like, I'm more comfortable giving money. But so I was like, okay, I can give my time. How can I give my time? And so, like, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I started doing it last year, is I give my time to other military members looking to grow their real estate portfolio, just learn about real estate. Mm-hmm. So I think last year I did a little over 53 hours of free mentoring for military folks. And I just, whatever I think in my one sheet I calculated, that's like, I don't know, $190 an hour or something. So then I just count that as my genuine contribution for the year, and it ended up being like $8,300 or, something like that. And then it's been like awesome. I've really enjoyed doing that. But if it wasn't for GoBundance, I wouldn't have done something like that. And then now using my real estate knowledge to help others is like, the compound effects of that long term are like, I think, a lot more than just giving $200 to some charity. So but yeah, that kind of ties into what you were talking about with like generosity. And that's something I'm definitely going to do, is like, it's important to give to people, whether it's time or money or, some combination of both. That I did not have growing up, really. So,
yeah. Like, I mean, we didn't really have anything to give. So it was one of those, like, we had a tendency to be the ones that people needed to give to growing up. And now it's a blessing to be able to give to other folks. But I struggled the same thing with giving money. I always have struggled giving money, just because to your point, I don't, especially like, I always feel for the person on the corner asking for help, right? But I cannot bring myself to give them money. I will gladly go buy you 5 bags of groceries for $200 before I give you 10, because I don't know where that 10 is going to go.
Right. And is it hurting them or helping them?
Exactly. Like, I could be giving you money that's going to put you right around the corner to go buy some drugs, or we can go to the store. I can, buy you a meal right now and prepare you, for some stuff,
They're like, dude, I don't want these apples.
I bought a guy once, and it was a good humbling experience as well as an angering experience. So it took me a little while to get rid of the anger and not really anger, but frustration, irritation. We were in Ohio, super cold outside. I've always been one that likes to give. I even if I don't, probably to a fault when I was a paycheck to paycheck guy, because I was already spending all of my money. So, but I give some away too. So that's, I guess it's a plus. No, I know it's a plus, but, so I bought this guy, gloves, socks, like he was a homeless guy walking around. I bought him some gloves, I bought him some socks, and I bought him some food. And, he had no gloves on, his boots were all beat up, and I handed him this stuff, and he looks in it and he's like, really? This is what I get? And then he walked away, and I was like, wow, way to make me not want to help anybody ever again. But I realized it took me a while, but his mental state was somewhere way different than mine. But it also taught me okay, well, what does he actually need? Clearly he didn't need, what's up, buddy? Clearly he didn't need gloves and socks. Maybe I should have asked him, what is it? How can I best support you? Right. Because I just assumed instead of trying to figure it out and take care of him the way that he needed it.
Yeah.
Hello again.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, can I finish this call, buddy?
I want to tell you something.
What do you want to tell me, buddy?
Can we look at one of the rough rocks?
Well, you got to ask mommy for that. I'm in the middle of recording.
Mom, can you?
So we bought him this. He loves to go collect rocks and do all sorts of stuff. So there's this Discovery Channel thing where you can have rough rocks, and then it goes through this little tumbler, and you put little powder in it, and it smooths them out. Yeah, it's a little rock polisher. So we're on stage 3 right now, and you got to keep him in for 6 to 8 days each stage. So it's we're on stage 3 now, and he keeps wanting to check it halfway through the stages. We just put it in 2 days ago for stage 3, and he's like, I want to see it again. I want to see it again. So
delayed gratification.
Yeah, no kidding. So we've been pretty successful at not having him open it up until it's that 6 to 8 day mark. But man, oh man. Yeah.
Impatience. That's another good one to teach.
Yeah. Well,
that's going to be tough
at a 4-year-old level. That's a tough one. Yeah. It's, that's a real tough one, but we have taught it quite a bit, and our kids are pretty solid at it. And I think it does start really young though. Teaching them, it starts a lot with teaching them manners. The second you start teaching them manners, and, the sitting at the table and waiting for your food, you're not running around acting crazy. Starting young with the smaller things. If they start throwing things nope, we're done. You're not getting it again. And don't feed into that monster, because it'll keep going,
Yeah.
And, it's literally, it could start with something, the kid just throwing things across the room, not necessarily out of anger or anything like that, but if they know they're not supposed to do it, that literally, as you keep going down the road, now turns into some tantrums, turns into some things that you don't want it to do. So you got to, anytime you see one of those behaviors, nip it in the bud pretty quickly.
And before you know it, he's in juvie.
Yes. Before you know it, my kid's in juvie, or I'm getting arrested for my kid doing something bad, or and we can't be having that. It's tough because it takes. This is one thing I've learned, even just in, the first year, but it is, I think I underestimated parenting, because I was there's plenty of how tough can it be? There's tons of parents out there. It's easy to be a bad parent. It's really tough to be a good parent, because it's so much easier, in your restaurant example, so much easier to just let them do whatever. But it takes a lot more energy, a lot more patience, a lot more thought to do the right thing and say, no, you're going to sit here, blah, 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 because as a parent, you want to eat your meal when it comes. You don't want to wrangle kids as they're running out, but that's the right thing to do for everyone, not just for the other people in the restaurant, but for the kids and all that. So it's a lot of energy, and it's a lot more time to be a good parent than it is to be a bad parent. No, I 100% agree with that. And it's, I've wanted to be a dad since I was 13 years old. So, it's always been one of those things that I've just okay, I really can't wait to be a dad. And then when you become a dad, it's holy crap, this is a lot more, especially when you know that you have goals and you have a desire for certain things, and you're man, this is a lot of work, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I absolutely love being a dad. I'd have 10 kids if my wife would let me, but she controls that factory, and I'm pretty sure it's getting shut down after the third one. So
that's I don't want that many. I imagine it gets a lot better after, as they get a little bit older, but man, as that first year, especially the first 6 months,
it's tough.
It is tough.
Yeah, it's real tough. I am extremely blessed with my wife because she, her thought process on it is oftentimes like, look, don't wake up in the morning or don't wake up in the middle of the night. I'll take care of it. You've got nothing that the kid wants. Like the kid only wants milk, and I don't have that. Despite what society may tell me, I can't breastfeed a child. Like it's not going to happen.
That attitude.
No, not with this attitude. You're right. With enough hormones injected into me, maybe I can. But boy, what a defeatist attitude I have. But she's like, no, just get the sleep. Like you're going to need it for the morning anyways. So so she lets me get all the sleep, and now I mean at 8 weeks old, she just slept last night like 7.5, 8 hours before she woke up. So I was like, well done, dear. Like you're 8 weeks into this. You've already got her sleeping through the night. You had me sleeping through the night too. So thank you. Like,
that's amazing. That's amazing.
But I'll stay up with her though. If she's having a hard time going to sleep, I'll stay up with her. Right. Because I haven't gone to sleep yet. But so I'll send her to bed, and then I'll stay up till like midnight, sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll fall asleep on the couch with her on my chest at like 2 o'clock in the morning, finally get her to sleep. But then she lets me sleep after that, So that's it goes right back to what you were talking about before, having that solid relationship, good communication between you and your spouse, and making sure that you guys are on point with all that type of stuff. And I think that just if you're not in a good point before kids, I promise kids aren't going to help. Kids are going to make that worse, right? So get yourselves in a good point where you have good communication already. You have the emotional intelligence to be able to communicate what you need with each other, and then bring a child into it. That the child's only going to make any of the problems worse.
Yeah, that's another important theme with in line with the whole podcast. Your whole podcast, idea or the concept of the podcast is like, the spouse, the wife is like, I mean, so critically important because for both of us, your wife is watching your kid 8-week-old, and then my wife is watching our 13, 14-month-old now. So it's like couldn't do this without them. So big shout out to the spouses for making it all possible, because if it wasn't for her, you wouldn't be doing this podcast right now, probably.
Oh, you're darn right. Yeah.
So So big.
If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't even have the thought process to do this podcast. Right. So
you wouldn't know what a podcast is.
I know. No, it's you're probably not wrong. No, I can't express how important it is to I forgot who it was that talked about it, but I think it was like Jordan Peterson or somebody that one of the number one decisions you could possibly make in your life is choosing the right spouse. Yeah. And especially military folks, I'm sure you've seen it a billion times. We used to call them tech school marriages, because when you're enlisted, you go through basic training, and then you go to your tech school for the Air Force side is what we called it. I think A school is what the Navy calls it. And so you go through our tech school marriages. Like people get married at 18 years old, 19 years old in tech school. And then before you know it, 5 years later, they're divorced. If they even made it to 5 years, they've already got 2 kids together in that 5 years. And now there's these 2 children growing up without their father in the house. But maybe there's a stepfather now around. And the amount of divorces that we saw was make the right decision on your spouse to begin with, and then your future will be infinitely better if you make the right decision up front with that.
I think building on that, what Jordan Peterson said about how significant of a life decision it is, the spouse, and how people need to think that through. But not only are you marrying your spouse, you're marrying your spouse's family. For all the goods and others, because every family has their pros and cons, and every family has issues as well. So I think that's important for people to realize that aren't married yet. Get to know the family, and because you're marrying into that family as well. So it's important to consider, because people may think oh, well, whatever, that's just her family, that's her parents. I love her, whatever, So they're your family now too. So for better or for worse. So
yes. Like it or not, you're stuck. It's My wife was surprised because like my family, like we all get along really well. We love hanging around with each other. Not the way they look at it is not the typical, because she's Latina. So again, her mom born and raised in Cuba, dad born and raised in Spain. Very, very, very family oriented type of family. Like everything is about the family, which is the same way that my family is, but they don't perceive a lot of American families that way. It's like, all right, 18, get the heck out of my house. You know,
right.
Like you're done, go
See
away. Like that's, you know, see you at Thanksgiving. Exactly. Yeah. Thanksgiving and Christmas. Other than that, you know, but that's not our family at all. You know, like her family still every Sunday, you know, grandma would be cooking a meal and everybody would come over and eat the meal on Sundays, you know? So it was a blessing to find a family that did that type of stuff. You know, like the very first time I met her family, like they had a pig roast, and I was like a whole pig, like this, like made with, oh man, it was phenomenal. And I said, okay, I got to figure out how to marry this woman. Like I don't know how we're going to do it yet, but that's got to happen. Like that was
a smart move on her part too. I'm sure that was strategic.
Yep. Key to a man's heart is through his stomach. So
she tricked you good.
Yeah, worked out well. She did. Dagnabbit. She hasn't done a pig roast yet. It's always,
where's the pig roast?
Where's the pig roast? I do need to build a pig roasting station in the backyard though, because man, that is so daggum good. Oh my word. It's phenomenal.
That's a good, you know, it's good presentation as well when you're having people over, you know, more so than just aluminum tins of food.
I know, right? Yeah. You just pull a whole pig off of there, and it was a lot of fun doing that. Though it takes all day, but man, it's so much fun.
Yeah,
because it's I love barbecue anyways, and doing anything over fire is what I'm all about. So I've been a pyro since I was a kid. So anything with fire, I'm there.
Yeah, that's funny.
All right. So, are there any one last question I definitely have for you is, and I think we've probably covered a few of these things already, but is there anything you're struggling with as a dad right now that you'd like to kind of either put out there, talk about, think through, you know, anything you want to put out in the ether that you're struggling with, or anything that if somebody's listening and they've got some ideas that they could send you afterwards or put in comments or anything like that you'd like to ask about?
I can't think of anything. I think it's really just getting to the point where, you know, getting him to sleep through the night, which I know will happen eventually. I mean, he did like 2 nights ago where he was up for like an hour and a half in the middle of the night. It was just like, my wife and I were just like, dude, just go to sleep. But I know it's going to get better. And that's kind of what I hang on to, because he's great. Just the sleep stuff is challenging. So if anyone has any, you know, sleep advice, I've read Baby Wise and some other stuff, but I think and he's also had like he's had teeth coming in recently. So some of it's just like, it's going to happen, you know, it's only so much you can do about it. But the sleep stuff is challenging. And for anyone that's about to be a parent out there, enjoy your sleep now, because it's going to, I also get,
it's well worth it.
Whenever I talk to buddies from like, you know, they have like a newborn, I'm like, oh, how's it going? Sleep, right? They're like, no, she sleeps through the night, like every night. And I'm like, what? But that's the thing, like every kid's different, you know?
Yeah.
But whenever I hear that, I'm just like, you son of a, you know, that's, you know, how did that even happen? You know, cause our son does not. So it's been challenged, but otherwise he's awesome. Super happy. I mean, he's like massive. He's like 95th plus percentile and like everything. He's
nice.
He's healthy and all that. But yeah, the sleep. If anyone has sleep tips, let me know.
Yeah, the sleep is a tough one. I mean, our first one slept through the night at like 8 weeks old, 7 weeks old, started sleeping through the night. Diana, our youngest now, is on the way. Like I said, she slept like 8 hours last night, 7.5 hours last night, which is awesome. But On Becoming Baby Wise was one of the best books that I read, and that helped us on the right track at the beginning. But then, like Rourke, he had that same issue that you're just talking about with teeth coming in and all this stuff. Like he kept getting ear infections. So like we had him sleeping through the night at like 2 months old. And then he got his first ear infection. And then we had to wake him up for medication, and he'd wake up because of the pain. And then we got rid of that. And then we're trying to get him back to sleeping through the night again. And then he got another ear infection. And then he got croup. And then he got all this stuff. And it was like, we didn't get him back sleeping through the night till he was almost 2 years old. Like
it's like hazing. It's hazing.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's parental hazing for sure.
Especially doing.
I'll pay him back later though.
Doing the full time like work thing plus the real estate on the side, and you know, once I had to totally reassess. You know, I had all these big goals, like business and real estate goals, and I'm like, well, those are going to be put to the side for a while because I gotta, you know, you can't do everything. That's another part that's been like challenging, especially for folks like entrepreneurs that want to do everything. Yeah, man, you got to make family a priority. So,
especially when both of us have, you know, working spouses, you know, it's not like, not like I can rely on any of that extra time. Like now, like both of our wives are in the military too. So what the heck are we going to do? But
one thing I started doing, I have an app, and this may be helpful for other dads out there, but I have an app called Strides, STRIDES. And I think it was only like $30 for the year, but you can throw in habits that you want to start, and it's very easy to just go in and check them off, and it will remind you. You can adjust the notifications, whatever. And one of the ones that I put in is quality time with Cal. So every day I have to spend quality time with him, and even if it's, you know, depending on the day, some days are busier than others, or maybe he's, you know, at daycare, and then, you know, it doesn't work out where I can spend like hours with him. But I try to make a habit every day of spending some quality time with him every day, even if it's just like 15 minutes or 20 minutes, so that I'm in the habit of that now, because I don't want to be the dad that's like, oh, well, once he's older, oh, well, when they're newborns, like, what, you don't have to spend time with them because they don't know anything. And it's like, man, they do. Like, that's, that is definitely that like a myth, you know, and it's something I think where a lot of dads are they just don't want to, and they, you know, justify it in some other way. Right. But, you know, spending quality time with him every day, and creating that habit now, so that it's just a forever habit where I have to do it. And then down the road, when I come to certain decisions, like, oh, what am I going to do? And it's like, well, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to spend time with him every day. So let me choose the one, you know, so, because it's really what matters the most, you know, family and your health and and family. So, that's something I've done that's been very inexpensive, very easy to do day to day. And I have other stuff on there, like, you know, exercise or whatever, but, that's been a really easy thing that I think that really has built a habit now. Cause I think I'm on a streak of like, it keeps streaks going as well, which is great. I think I'm on like a 58 day streak of it, of spending time. And the reason I didn't before that is because my wife and my son were out of town. So I couldn't really do it then, but, you know, trying to keep those streaks going. But I think that's a good way to get in those habits. So gamifying being a dad. So. Yeah. Cause I need that, you know, I need that. Yeah. You know, tracking, like, that's how my brain, that's how a lot of people's brains work, but that's definitely how mine works. And if I'm, like you said, if I'm gamifying it, I'm like, I'm motivated, you know? Yeah. When I was doing 75 hard, if it wasn't for the app, I would have failed miserably, like, right off the bat, you know? Yeah. If for no other reason, then it reminded me of some of the things that I forgot I needed to do for 75 hard. I'd be like, crap, I still haven't read my 10 pages, or, son of a gun, I didn't take my picture, you know? Yeah. It was, I don't know if you've ever done 75 hard, but it's pretty solid. It's good stuff. Yeah. I've heard it's great, but yeah. All right. Well, I think we could probably wrap it up here. I mean, it was a solid, good conversation. I thank you so very much for jumping on. If people want to get a hold of you, maybe they want to invest with you, maybe they want to be one of those military members who you mentor, or maybe whatever, maybe they got some sweet sleeping advice for you. How do you want people to get a hold of you? Yeah. So, back in 2020, I started a company called Honor and Equity, just as a way of, you know, sharing my journey in real estate with other military members. So, we have a website, honorandequity.com, at Honor and Equity on Instagram and Twitter. And then I'm at the Doug Spence on Instagram. So give us a follow there. And I love chatting with military folks. Love sharing whatever knowledge I can with military folks, especially about investing, so they can grow their portfolios. So absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Doug, for jumping on. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I look forward to kind of watching you grow up with as a dad, and see the kids grow up, and hopefully you get to meet your kiddo in person. Yeah. You know, if you ever drag the family to a GoBundance event, or to a FamBundance event, especially as Cal gets a little older. But it's a pleasure chatting. Looking forward to the next one. Always awesome to have some other military folks who are kicking butt and being good dads. So thanks for jumping on, brother. Yeah, thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the Biz Dad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.